Welcome to the motherfucking relay. We're covering today's top boxing news.
Let me tell you why boxing might be entering a golden age right now, and this super fight, which is the biggest fight in a decade, might set it off. Because you all love boxing, right? I mean, especially Mexican and Mexican-American fans, you've been keeping boxing alive.
That particular comment, that particular sentiment from Max seems to have ruffled some feathers in some sectors. A Twitter user who goes by the name Sugar-Free Mars reacted to it saying, what the boxing quote-unquote media is allowed to peddle and propagandize is crazy work. I have never seen a sport single out a culture as its sole patronage, viewership, and lifeline as seen in boxing, and y'all just shut up and take it.
What are they supposed to do, Sugar? Lie to themselves? Nobody in America spends more money on boxing than Mexican and Mexican-American fans. It's just the truth. That's why Canelo Alvarez is the biggest draw in this country. That is why he holds the indoor attendance record for the most people to ever attend a boxing match. He's the reason that so many people showed up to yesterday's press conference, and he's the reason this weekend's fight is as big as it is. Terrence Crawford fought last year.
Was that fight as big as this one? As widely publicized? Did it get the same crowd involvement, crowd reaction as this weekend's fight? What's the difference between that fight and this one?
This one involves a Mexican fighter. This one involves Canelo. You want to act like that doesn't matter?
Nikki J. of the Queens of Boxing said, this made my blood boil. The disrespect was so blatant, and the fact that nobody on the stage refuted that bullshit was just embarrassing.
What was disrespectful about it?
Sugar-Free responded, it's a farce constantly peddled, sis, shaking my head. And too often black fighters and fans alike accept it because an idiot in a suit makes those proclamations. Furthermore,
oh, you're making this about race.
The need for this nonsense to be stated to the boxing public is insidious and runs deep.
It's your inferiority complex that runs deep. Your need to be coddled and pampered and
pandered to. What, you're jealous because he was giving the Mexican fight fans their props for spending more money on boxing than anybody else in America? More than the Dominicans, more than the Puerto Ricans, and yes, more than the black fight fans.
What were the majority of people that showed up to that press conference? What do you think they were?
Who is the top draw in America? Because Canelo doesn't fight in Mexico. He fights here in the United States. And when people go to see him, they spend US dollars, not pesos. I think a lot of people, for a long time now, have been lying to themselves about who the biggest draw in America is. And it's not an American. That may hurt your feelings.
That may not have always been the case. In previous eras of boxing, perhaps the amount of people that spent money on it was more diverse. But where we are now, Mexican-American boxing fans really do spend the most money on boxing.
That is just a matter of fact, and here's a newsflash, baby. I ain't Mexican, but I understand it. I accept it, because it's the truth. Too often in this modern day and age, you see individuals that are at odds with reality itself. They are at odds with the truth. The truth is, no American fighter generates what Canelo generates. And if Max Kellerman took time out to highlight that, that shouldn't bother you.
If you really are a boxing fan, you should understand that by now. Why do you think Mexican style was such a big part of Golovkin's marketing strategy? They knew who their target audience was, the one that spends the most money on boxing.
It's not you, because Terrence Crawford, who's fighting tomorrow, fought last year, and that fight last year did not elicit the same reaction that this one is going to. It's the same with Tank. Tank has been on pay-per-view, 7 or 8 times? But only once did he do 1 million buys.
You want to pretend that Ryan didn't have nothing to do with that? Fighting a Mexican-American fighter with Mexican-American fans.
I see so much of this in so many sectors of life, in this day and age. People that just don't want to accept reality. They want to bend it to their will, hoping that everyone else will play along.
And when they don't, they want to call it racist. They want to call it disrespect.
So then show me what fighter in America has been generating more than Canelo, because I can tell you right now it's not Gervonta. We can pull up their pay-per-view numbers side by side.
For how many years now have you seen those lists? For the highest paid boxers in the sport, Canelo's been on there consistently, but you know who hasn't? Gervonta.
You know who else hasn't? Terrence, and I'm a huge fan of Terrence Crawford, but you're lying to yourself.
You just are, if you don't want to accept that the demographic in America that spends the most money on this sport is the Mexican one.
Whether it's Cinco de Mayo or Mexican Independence Day in September, those are two very big days for the sport of boxing, where a lot of money gets spent on it. Do you think that's a coincidence? If you want Max Kellerman to pander to you and your demographic, tell them to stop stealing pay-per-views.
Tell them to stop bragging about it.
There is a noticeable disparity between Canelo's baseline for a pay-per-view and everybody else's baseline for a pay-per-view. His is somewhere in the neighborhood of 4 to 500,000 on average.
That means people are buying them shits. Somebody is.
Gervonta's median number is just above or just below 200,000. A noticeable disparity. So if what you want is for Max to pander to you and your demographic, they need to start spending more money. They need to stop stealing pay-per-views and start buying them. Otherwise, Max is going to stick to the program.
The last event that Boxingscene was credentialed for, that Riyadh Season was involved in promoting, was actually Terrence Crawford's last fight a little over a year ago, August of 2024 in Los Angeles. So as of then, no problems that I can trace. Ever since then, there's been a problem, and it wasn't long after that event that Tris Dixon wrote a detailed article about the concept of sports washing, the fact that and this is not really opinion, this is factual, that people on the Saudi side have stated this, that part of their interest in getting into boxing was to clean up the reputation of the entire nation, and putting all their money behind these events is to try to change the world's attitudes towards Saudi Arabia. That's sports washing, as simple as that. So when Tris wrote about that, again, kind of guessing here, but that would seem to have been a trigger point, a pivot point that started getting Boxingscene barred from covering their events. It's continued every single thing that a Boxingscene writer has applied for since then. And as I noted in the story, it's not only Boxingscene. It's been mostly us. There aren't too many others, but there was also notably a writer for The Telegraph who wrote an article in advance of the Joshua Dubois fight that highlighted the sports washing aspect. It ran a couple days before the fight, and at that point he was told he was no longer credentialed, and he has no connection to Boxingscene. So the common thread there would be, you mentioned sports washing, and you're on the not allowed into
no-fly
our events list.
So if the common denominator between journalists who are not accredited to cover Turkey's events is the accusation that Turkey and the people in Saudi Arabia are sports washing, why would you keep doing it and then keep expecting that professional courtesy?
Why?
To receive accreditation, because that's a professional courtesy, not a right. It's not your right to be there.
It's not necessarily your right to get in for free, and this is not something that's exclusive to Turkey and his Riyadh Season or Ring Magazine cards. Promoters have always reserved the right to pick and choose what members of the media they allow to their events.
As members of the press, to cover the event, you can always purchase a ticket like everybody else, then come tax season, claim it on your taxes as a business expense so that you can get a refund of some kind. It's not like it's a situation that can't be worked around, because it can. But the idea that you will continually accuse Turkey El Al-Sheikh and the Saudi Arabian Sports Authority of sports washing explicitly, which was not their choice of words, it was yours.
Now, the Saudis did say that they mean to stage these events to change the perception of Saudi Arabia around the world in order to bolster tourism within the region. They want to be seen in a different light. as maybe a tourist destination.
A sort of new entertainment capital of the world. That is what they aspire to, but they never accused themselves of sports washing. You did that from some sort of moral high ground.
That was your choice of words. Don't you think it's a bit arrogant to go on and say something like that, then expect those same people to give you press credentials?
You're saying they're trying to cover up their crimes against humanity by staging all of these big events, and you do so from some moral high ground. Well, shouldn't that same moral high ground compel you to not cover these events?
Since it's all just sports washing.
I think that the people at Boxingscene and some of these other boxing pundits got caught in between styles. Do you want to cover geopolitics or do you want to cover boxing? And understand that I am a big supporter of Boxingscene. I have been for years. It is a go-to source for a boxing fan to stay in the know. So I've no axe to grind with them, but it does seem like they ventured away from their target audience and their target material. Now, if you, as a journalist, want to accuse Saudi Arabia of crimes against humanity, you can. But understand that somewhere else, someone else, in some other part of the world is accusing the United States of the exact same thing. So does that then mean that every time somebody stages a baseball game here, they're sports washing?
A football game, a basketball game, a boxing match. What you say about Saudi Arabia here in the United States, someone else, somewhere else, can say that about us.
You can't just assume that you have the moral authority to wag your finger in anybody's face and they're not at liberty to react or respond in their own way. They can't stop you from writing the articles that you're writing, but what they can do is deny you access to their events.
And it's not like they're doing that to everybody. I just saw a video of Marcos Villegas at the weigh-ins for this weekend's fight.
I mean, I've seen other independent members of the media like Radio Raheem of Seconds Out and Michelle Joy Phelps back when she was covering boxing, covering Turkey's events. So maybe
you shouldn't have taken it upon yourself to judge them.
I'm not even saying that the people at Boxingscene are wrong, so much as this is a cause and effect kind of deal. It's a cause and effect kind of situation. Don't you think it's a bit arrogant to keep accusing them of sports washing, but simultaneously expecting access to those events?
At some point, they're gonna get tired of that shit.
And there seems to be a rift between Turkey El Al Sheikh and not just the people at Boxingscene, but Gary Jonas and the people at ProBox as well. For whatever reason, Gary Jonas thinks that he is in competition with Turkey when, near as I can tell, they are operating on completely different wavelengths. And there's no reason that they shouldn't get along.
But Gary's got it in his head that Turkey views ProBox as, I don't know, some kind of a threat, which I think is laughable.
Seems like a common sense argument to me. If you want to keep getting access to Turkey shows, you gotta play nice to some degree, because it's his party.
And that's not exclusive to him. I reiterate, promoters have always reserved the right to give access to whoever they feel like in the media. They didn't give it to everybody before. They don't give it to everybody now.
And least of all when you're taking shots at the guy in the government that is paying to make it happen, putting it all together. What did you expect?
I would hope that they can smooth things over.
But it seems like this has been going on for over a year now, and it doesn't seem to be getting any better.
You're a very well-rounded fighter. But early in your career, I used to think about you like James Toney. Good puncher and all that, but really very slick upper body movement. You used to like to lie against the rope sometimes and let guys try to hit you and counter punch. You loved when a guy came to you and just beat him up. And then when you got to super middleweight, at a certain point, it looked to me like guys just started running. So you had to start chasing them. And the last, I don't know, 6, 7, 8 fights, I don't see the old Canelo who was slick making guys miss. I see a seek and destroy fighter. Do you, first of all, why? Am I right about
because
that?
I don't
Why did
need
that
it.
happen? You don't need it.
Because I don't need it with that kind of fighters. They are slower than me. So I don't need to start moving or keep moving if I know I don't need to do something. Why I'm gonna do it? If I need it, I'm gonna do it. So that's why, because they are slower than me. So that's why I can do my thing.
Are you saying lower or slower?
Slower?
Slower.
Sorry.
Slower. I just, okay, slower than you.
Slower. So that's why I think I'm not needed like as avoid punches like that much, right? But when a fighter is fast and throw a lot of punches and everything, so well,
Who's Crawford? Where does he fall?
yeah, I'm gonna need it for sure,
You're going to need those skills for sure in this fight.
and you will see.
So that's my question, because you can fall into habits. And then my question in the heat of the moment is, but does Canelo still have the muscle memory? Not just knowing how to do it, of course you know how to do it, but does your body still respond the same way that it did when you were the slick Canelo? Is it still there?
We'll see Saturday night. I think I'm still there, and I feel better than ever.
In Canelo's own words, he doesn't cut angles the same way that he used to before because the opponents are slower and he doesn't need to. I think that was Canelo's ego talking because he very much changed his style, but I don't think it was for that reason. I think it's because the opponents got bigger, noticeably taller, noticeably longer, and mobile. So if you're a counterpuncher that's used to using a fighter's aggression against them, what happens when the fighter's not aggressive and they're taller than you are?
You can't hang back anymore looking to work off the counter because they'll pick you off at long range. They have the height and length to do it. You're a sitting duck fighting that way.
Canelo, being as crafty as he is, found a way to still work off the counter, not by hanging back, but by coming forward, baiting the opponent to throw so he can counter what they throw. If you're a shorter, stumpier, stockier fighter, the safest place for you is in the opponent's chest, within close proximity, not on the outside where they can keep you at arm's length, but on the inside where you have the advantage. That's why he comes forward more now than he used to the point where some people think he's a pressure guy.
And he really isn't. He's still a boxer puncher. He's still a counter puncher, but he spends so much time coming forward, you'd think he were a pressure guy.
The reason he's not is because he's not limited to just applying pressure, and he doesn't have a pressure fighter's work rate, a pressure fighter's volume. The telltale sign of a pressure fighter is they throw punches in bunches, whether it's Artur Beterbiev or Christian Mabili or William Zepeda. That's the telltale sign, whereas Canelo is still a lot more reserved with his output, more economic than a pressure guy.
He's really not a pressure guy. He just knows how to mimic one when the situation calls for it. And when you're facing a taller, longer fighter that's on the move, you're better off applying pressure than just working off the counter, least of all from the outside.
Now with Terence Crawford, he's going to get a break from what he's had to deal with for the last 7 or 8 fights, because Terence isn't actually that much taller or that much longer than he is. Terence will be in many ways the smallest fighter that he's fought in a long time. So are we going to see Canelo return to how he used to fight at 154 and how he used to fight at 160? That more slick Canelo that angles off, slips and counters, rolls and counters.
These days we see him more catch and counter from out of the high guard while coming forward, because he's fighting somebody that's not as big as his usual opponent. Does he go back to what he used to do? It's all very intriguing.
I'm looking forward to finding out. Both boys have already been weighed in, and they're ready to go. A lot of questions are going to get answered tomorrow. Can Terence Crawford really handle Canelo's power and pressure? And can Canelo handle his boxing, his ring IQ? We'll see.